Hello, everyone, and welcome to the MasterControl Logbooks webinar. Um, Today we are going to go over the power of electronic logbooks. Then we are going to walk through a demo of the software. And finally, we will conclude with a conversation with Anthony Contreras from Jamieson Wellness, as well as a Q&A section at the very end. If you'll notice, there is a Q&A box that you can use to type in your questions. You can do this at any time you want during the webinar, and we will work on answering all questions at the end. So, my name is Eli Shalita. I am the Principal Product Manager for Logbooks at MasterControl. I will be presenting most of today and moderating the conversation. Joining me is Nicole Thomas, who is our Solutions Consultant and will be conducting a demo of Logbooks. So let's first talk about the power of electronic logbooks. What is a logbook first? I assume most people here have interacted with one before. Originally, it was a record of a ship's speed and progress using a wooden ship. However, we have evolved way past that point since then, and logbooks today are used for a variety of use cases, from audit logs to equipment logs to environmental monitoring, or even workout and fitness logs that you might use in your personal lives. When it comes to logbooks used professionally, the use cases we see in our business are usually around cleaning, quality, and documentation. Cleaning logbooks are often used by operators or facilities to keep track of regular cleaning or other regularly performed activities. Quality logbooks are used to keep track of inspections, of environmental monitoring, of equipment recording, basically making sure everything is up to spec and working as advertised. And documentation logbooks are used to record and archive retrieval logs, batch detail logs, basically to keep track of processes that have been completed. According to research we conducted with our user base, 100% of our customers use logbooks, and over 80% of those logbooks remain on paper. On this screen, you can see an example of what a paper logbook looks like, and I'm sure most of you are familiar with your own paper logbooks as well. Now, there's a reason why everybody uses logbooks and why they remain on paper. It works. Logbooks have been essential to this industry since its beginning, and they are a critical component of quality control and assurances. And also, they remain on paper because paper logbooks were a pretty powerful tool and quite safe, given that they were a physical medium. However, they have their limitations. And some of the most common issues we see with paper logbooks come down to 5 different areas. First is human error. A logbook ultimately is filled in by a person. That person might make mistakes, might misplace the logbook, might make any of the errors that everybody makes over the course of their work. And these errors cannot be easily found, retrieved, or corrected on a paper logbook. They are also inflexible. Once printed, a paper logbook cannot be easily edited. You would need to close it and then reissue new paper logbooks, adding a logistical cost to any of the work that needs to be done. Which means that any revision to a template is going to run into the third area of issue, which is the inefficiency. Logbooks are only as fast as the physical process that supports them. You need to write things in, you need to manually issue the logbooks, you need to retrieve them from storage, you need to search through them manually to find any records that need to be audited, and you need to move them in and out of storage as well. Because of that, they are also siloed. Logbooks that are stored in one site are not easily accessible to other sites without being either digitized or transported. And that also means that the value learned from them or the data learnings from them cannot be easily shared across sites. If one site notices through analyzing their logbooks that there are inefficiencies in the process, that information is gated behind their own access until it is shared with everybody else. And finally, they are expensive. They are expensive in terms of materials, in terms of labor, in terms of in terms of storage, basically all of the costs that come with a physical medium. Because of all this, MasterControl released a logbook product that allows you to use electronic logbooks instead. And this neatly addresses many of the issues that we discussed in the past. Logbooks currently uses a no-code builder, which allows you to intuitively drag and drop elements into a template to quickly create templates or issue revisions. These revisions are then easily propagated to all of your electronic logbooks without needing manual process to ship and reprint them. Because they are electronic, they are seamlessly connected with other MasterControl solutions. You can navigate in and out of logbooks through other products, and logbooks connect or will connect with many other products on the MasterControl platform. They come with built-in controls and training. Currently, you can attach training documents or SOPs to logbook templates, and anybody who makes use of the logbooks generated from this template must pass a training check to be allowed to use them, meaning that no user can interact with the logbook without having the required training first. And all of this comes natively with the platform rather than requiring external training or independent verification. Logbooks will also support scheduling and reminders. We send out notifications and tasks for users who need to perform certain tasks. We are working on a scheduling feature that will allow you to set up a regular cadence of activities for logbooks to say, for example, that a cleaning needs to be done daily or a validation needs to be done weekly and so on, which will support anything from daily cleanings to twice yearly calibrations, let's say. And finally, because they are electronic, they are natively integrated with our tracking and analytics data. Logbooks can easily be searched, filtered, and analyzed in order to glean information from them and learn how to improve your processes based on the past, as well as give you an eagle-eyed view of all of the tasks that remain to be done or any issues that exist. This is also supported by Logbooks integration with MasterControl's Insights functionality, which comes with both pre-built and flexible and customizable reporting that you can use to look into your activities. So this was a quick overview of the value of electronic logbooks and why we're excited to talk to you about how they can be used today. Next, I'm going to hand it over to Nicole, who will give you a demo of how logbooks actually function in MasterControl.
Thanks, Ellie. Hello, everyone. I'm Nicole Thomas, a solutions consultant at MasterControl. And prior to coming to MasterControl, I actually came from industry. So I worked in the quality space, working for organizations that were regulated by FDA and ISO. So I am very familiar with paper-based logbooks and all the issues that can come with that when being audited. So today we're going to be taking a look at MasterControl's digital logbook solution. We're going to be highlighting the process of taking your current paper-based logbook, being able to now manage them digitally. Digital logbooks allows you to easily issue and review logbooks. It'll prevent the headache of lost or damaged pages, and going digitally will also assist in reducing the number of missing records or having any GDP issues, which will ultimately eliminate receiving any findings during an audit. So let's go ahead and get started and take a look at logbooks. All right. Ellie, can you see my screen okay?
Yes, I can.
Perfect. So today we're going to be taking a look at MasterControl's logbook solution, which is just an additional module that MasterControl has to offer in conjunction with all of the other products that we have. And today we're actually going to be using an example logbook from a customer who will actually be joining us later. So when entering the logbook solution, your users, based on the permissions that they've been given into what logbooks they're able to access, will ultimately decide what they're able to see on this logbook screen here. But what we're going to do first is we're actually going to build out a logbook. So I'm going to come over here to our logbook templates. And this allows for us to build out those digital logbooks using our paper-based logbook that we currently have today, but now being able to manage it electronically. So I'm going to just quick share with you the logbook that we're going to be using today, which is a warehouse cleaning and care checklist. And this logbook, you can see, has an area where a logbook number needs to be issued, the area that it's being used in, the time frame of when it's being used, as well as all of the different areas and activities that are being inspected for this specific logbook. So we're going to actually take this and build it out digitally. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new template here. And this is where you're going to provide your logbook a template title. And this is where, if you have certain logbooks that maybe get used in multiple different areas, instead of you now having to manage those individually, you can now create a template and be able to issue that template to multiple different areas. So you're not having to create templates for every single logbook that you guys have if it is shared across areas. So I'm going to go ahead and give it a title here. We'll just call this our warehouse cleaning checklist. If we need to include any instructions for this specific template, we can do that here. I'm going to put some really detailed instructions in here. If this template requires validation, this is where you can utilize the validation on demand feature. But for today's demo, we are just going to say that the validation is not needed and go ahead and save this. And upon doing that, it now creates a blank logbook for us to now generate the different steps of areas that need to be looked at for this specific logbook. So what we can do here is now add in a step, and this allows for us to choose the type of information that we want to be looked at in this logbook. So you can see here we have text fields if there's data that needs to be entered, number if there's areas where you need to capture numeric limits or anything like that. Single select, multi-select, a timestamp if you want to capture when things took place, or maybe you have certain tests that need to be performed within a certain time range. You want to capture when the start and stop of a test takes place. You also have a date field and then a step complete. And a step complete just allows for a user to be able to mark that maybe something was looked at and it was completed. For this specific example, though, we are going to capture just a few different areas here just to show you how easy it is to build a digital logbook. So we're going to capture a timestamp here because the first field in this logbook is wanting to capture when the area was cleaned and inspected. So I'm going to come in here and put just date, time, and by. What's really nice about the digital logbook solution is that MasterControl is actually going to capture what user is logged in. So every time an entry is performed, it will also digitally capture who it was performed by and the date and timestamp there as well. But because we're going to transpose the example that was provided to us, we'll go ahead and just enter in that there. We can then enter in a step here, and we're going to do a single select here. So that way we can capture the different zones or areas that are inspected for this specific cleaning checklist. So we're just going to put a few examples in here. We can do zone 1, zone 2, and zone 3. And then maybe we need to now start capturing all of the different areas or activities of cleaning checks that are being either performed or inspected. So we're going to go ahead again, adding in a single select field. So we can say this is for the floors and cleaned. Fix my little spelling error here. And then we can say it was either performed or inspected. Okay. And then we're just going to add a few in here. Take a look at maybe our next area is for walls. So you can see here how easy it is to go ahead and pick the different areas that need to be captured in a digital logbook. So wipe, dry. And again, we performed or inspected this check. Okay. So you kind of get the idea of how easy it is to go in and just capture the addition, the different fields of information that need to be captured within your logbook. I do want to touch on a few other features that Logbooks offers. So with every single step here, you also have the additional settings here if you need to provide areas where a witness needs to come in and witness information that's being entered within a logbook, in which you can assign that at a authorized user or user group level. You also have a verify step if there's anything that needs to be captured, somebody that needs to come in and verify information that was captured. Again, with each of these, you have the ability to assign them at a user or user group level. And then in addition to that, you also can say you want these checks to be mandatory. And what that does is that it makes that specific field has to be checked off before the user can continue on to be able to populate the data within the rest of the logbook. So you can decide which fields of information that you're capturing in your logbook are going to require a witness verifier. You also have this not applicable field. So in a digital logbooks, every single field that you enter in here is automatically going to be a required field that needs to be populated. In the event that you're using a template across multiple areas, like I mentioned earlier, there might be some fields in there that maybe don't apply to every single area that logbook's being issued to. So that's where you can mark some of those fields to where they need to be made not applicable. And that just allows for the user to mark that field not applicable. So that way it'll allow for that field to be skipped when data entry is being captured within the logbook. The other thing I want to highlight here, in our numeric entry, I mentioned earlier that you have the ability to set numeric limits. So in the numeric section here in the properties, you can say that you want to set decimal precision to define how many decimal places you want to be allowed in your numeric entry. You can also set limits. So you can set rules to where if there's certain, maybe you're looking for a certain weight or a temperature range, you can come in here and set the rules around the target and ranges that numeric entry is looking for. And then you can also set a unit of measure. So that's some additional features that you have available within the logbook solution as well. I'm going to go ahead and take this out. That way we're not including that. And I'm going to go ahead and add in just a text field here to include some comments. All right. So once you've built out your logbook template, you also have some additional options here. So if I come up here to the little settings gear, I then can come in and decide, do I need this template to go through an approval process? So if I want this, kind of think of like your paper-based form where maybe it does go through an approval process before you issue it for use. In the digital world, you have the ability to enable approvals, and then it will notify any of those template approvers at a user or user group level. So that way they can go ahead and approve the template before you actually publish it or issue it for use. And then one other thing to highlight here, and Ellie touched on this earlier, is that Logbooks actually allows for it to perform training checks against the training module in MasterControl as well. And in doing that, you can actually link documents that might be relative to the specific logbook. So maybe you have an SOP around your warehouse cleaning, or maybe you're using it for a calibration verification, and you want to, put in the work instruction for, calibration for pressure gauges or something like that. You can link in a document to the logbook here, and it will allow for it to link it directly into, I'm just going to use this as an example, link it directly into the logbook. So that way, anybody who's issued the logbook, it will actually perform those training checks to make sure that they've been trained against the procedure that's linked into it. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and submit this logbook here, and we are going to publish it. The system will do a few checks there to make sure that all of your steps have names and selections for them. And so we have now issued or created our logbook template. It hasn't been issued at this point. So that's where, as an issuer, I can come over to logbooks. I can select, I want to issue a new logbook. And now I can select the logbook template that's been published and provide a title here. And so in that example I showed you, it captured a logbook number and functional area. So maybe I want to do, warehouse cleaning checklist for area A. And then they had a period of like start and end date. With digital logbooks, you actually have unlimited amount of entries in here. So previously, if you were to issue them on like a monthly or quarterly cadence, and going digitally allows for you to now manage that indefinitely. So you don't have to go in and issue, weekly, monthly, quarterly checklists or logbooks anymore. Unless there's a revision that's made to the logbook. So I can go ahead and put in a logbook title here and then set my permissions. So this is where I can grant users access to be able to execute rows within that logbook. So we have our logbooks assignees. These can be set at a user or a user group level as well. And the assignees are the ones who can actually go in and populate the data of a logbook. You then have your logbooks reviewers. So these are going to be the individuals. So think of these as like your quality managers that would have to go around to the different labs or different areas that have these cleaning checklists and actually physically look at them to make sure that everything's being populated correctly. Now moving digitally, these reviewers will get an electronic notification so that way they know that there's logbook entries that have been captured that now need their review, and now being able to manage that all electronically. You also have viewers. I like to think of viewers as maybe your internal auditors, where maybe they're not going to be the ones actually executing or filling out data in a logbook. And they're also not going to be the one reviewing the data that's populated in them either, but they just need to simply view the record. So I like to consider those the viewers of a logbook. And then you have a message area here. So as you issue these logbooks, if you want to give a quick message to any assignees that are receiving this logbook being issued to them, you can give them a quick message. But for now, we'll just go ahead and create this logbook. And since I am the logbook owner, I will also have access to it. So it will go ahead and issue our logbook. Might have some delay in my screen all of a sudden. See here. Let's see if we can pull up another one. Oh, we were able to pull up this one. For some reason, it does not like the one that I just created. So for this example, we'll just go ahead and pull up another logbook that we have created here. And so when you pull up a logbook, this is now what the logbook looks like once it's been generated. So it'll provide you your logbook title, any instructions that you've included in your logbook. If you have any documentation that's linked to the logbook, you'll see that linked here. And this is where it'll perform the training check to make sure that the user that is accessing the logbook has been trained against the procedure if there are any training requirements linked to that. You then can come in and start a new row, and it's then going to provide you with all of the fields of information that are required in that specific logbook to where you can then start filling in the data that is required for that specific logbook. So we can put in all of the details of our logbook. You can see here on the left-hand side, it's automatically capturing this as an in progress row and also capturing all of the details that I've already provided. Users can come in here and start new rows. So if there's logbooks that are kind of being used in multiple different areas, users can go in there and work simultaneously on those and go ahead and start populating the data that's required. And you can see here, it's marking that in progress as well. You also can notice I did not put in me as a user filling in this entry or when I started the entry. And that's because in the detailed view, MasterControl is automatically capturing that data. So it's automatically going to capture, especially from an audit perspective, what information is being populated when. So that's in the detailed view. And then I have that more simplistic view as well. Right now, all of these rows are in progress, but as I continue to fill in the data entry points, it will then allow for me to proceed and move that logbook entry automatically over to the ready for review area. So I can come in here and put in an entry. And then here's an area if I want to mark as something non-applicable, I can go ahead and check that. And you'll see here it automatically moved that row from out of in progress to over to ready for review. And that's where, as a reviewer that's been assigned to that specific logbook, they'll get an in-app alert letting them know that they have a logbook that is ready for review. A reviewer can come in and now come to this area, see all of the logbook entries that are up for review. So for instance, if we had multiple entries here that are up for review, it will allow for the reviewer to review all of those entries at once. So I can review just one, or I can review all of them at one time. So like if you conducted reviews at the end of the week and you had maybe 30 different entries in here, instead of you having to go in one by one and review them, it will allow for you to review all of them together. A reviewer can also see the detailed view here so they can see any information that was populated. At any point, if before a logbook is reviewed, say a assignee has to come in and maybe they entered in the wrong part number, they can still come in here and make corrections. And in doing that, the system's gonna say, hey, why are you making this correction? So from a good documentation practices standpoint, instead of them having to, draw the line, make the correction, initial a date, put a reason code in there if you use those, I can now manage all of that digitally. So it's gonna say the original value that I entered was this. This is what we're changing it to, and this is why. So we can say we entered in the wrong part number, and then apply the correction, and it will automatically flag this entry as having a correction. So a reviewer that comes in to see the detailed view, a correction's been made here. Let's go ahead and click on that. It'll highlight exactly what the correction was. So I can quickly see that from a review standpoint. Okay. As a reviewer, I can come in and start my review. What's cool about the logbooks digital solution is that it also allows for kind of the over-the-shoulder witness, verifies, or reviews. So if you have any entries that need a witness or verifier or somebody that needs to review these entries, instead of a manager or lab supervisor or whoever it might be, maybe at maintenance, they, instead of them having to go back to their office and then conduct their review and then having to wait for those witnesses or verifies or reviews to take place, they can actually come and do that over the shoulder, to where they can come in and enter in their credentials with their username and password and go ahead and complete either that witness check, that verify step, or the review directly from there. Once entries have been marked ready for reviewed, it automatically will lock them down. Corrections can no longer be made, but I now have that information logged from a simplistic view that you see here, but we still have that detailed view available as well. And so I can come in and see that information. I also have the ability to export this information if I need to do that. So I can export it to a CSV or a PDF from a simplistic view or that detailed view if I want those details provided with that export as well. So you'll have all of that included. In addition to that, I also have my logbooks details over here, so I can see exactly when a logbook was issued and who issued it, and what revision we're currently working on. Revisions can be made. As revisions get made to templates, it will actually lock down the logbook template and basically allow for users to continue any in-progress entries. But once those have been completed, it will actually flag the user that no new entries can be made until the revised logbook has been issued to them. So it'll allow for them to contact their administrator for that. In addition to your digital logbooks, we also have our insights. So insights is our reporting and dashboarding tool, providing you with the data and analytics that are being collected within the solution. So it allows for you to quickly review your logbooks and take action to evaluate the health of your digital logbooks as well. So from logbooks and insights, you have a logbooks overview where you can quickly see the template usage, how many rows have been executed within each of the logbooks that have been issued. You also have a where you can come in and see logbooks recordings to see how many daily entries there that have been made, and also identify the logbooks that they're being made in. In addition to that, you also have logbook step progress, so you can kind of just get a general idea of the progress of the step completion within these logbooks. And then you have your logbooks report. So from an auditing standpoint, you have a report that'll show you all of your correction details that are being made all across the board in your logbooks, as well as the logbooks execution report. So it'll show you all of the logbooks that have been executed and all of the different entries there. Okay. So that's all I have to cover. I'm going to hand the time back over to Ellie, and I think we have a guest joining us.
Thank you, Nicole. Right. And speaking of guests, I am happy to welcome today Anthony Contreras from Jamieson Wellness. Anthony, would you introduce yourself?
Thank you, Eli. So my name is Anthony Contreras, Quality Systems and Validation Director for Jamieson Wellness. Jamieson Wellness is the leading brand manufacturer, distributor, and manufacturer of high-quality nutraceutical products. Established in 1922, we are over 100 years old. The #1 vitamin, mineral, and supplements brand in Canada.
All right. And so, Anthony, I thank you for taking the time to be with us here today. So I know you've been one of the early adopters for logbooks. You've implemented this product at your, for your job. I would love to, would you like to share more about what the process has been like, or give everybody here an idea of how you've been using electronic logbooks?
No problem. So we found out about logbooks during one of our summit visits, I believe back in 2023, 2022, not really remember. And we saw this as a wonderful opportunity. As we know, many of us have several logbooks throughout the manufacturing environment. We had everything from balance calibration, room verification, cleaning logs, in addition to our laboratory operations, our daily verifications, calibrations, preventive maintenance, and so forth. And as we know, all of these logbooks take up several resources, just like everyone was saying. Just for example, one of our production rooms had 3 different logbooks just for one room. And having the traceability during investigations and so forth made things time consuming. You have to suit up. It is a GMP environment, so there's gowning, face masks, gloves, PPE, and so forth just to protect our product. We go in, we retrieve the logbook. Obviously, there's checking in and checking out procedures for those logbooks when removed from rooms, and then making the copies for our investigations or scans. Now with a digital logbook solution, we were able to sit at the moment's notice and actually do everything from our local mobile device. As an early adopter, we were strategizing implementation strategies for that. Obviously, our laboratory had the most hardware available to us, followed by our production environment where we're going to roll out tablets across every room. And like with all the stuff that MasterControl does provide us, it was a hit from day one. However, with every enhancement and with everybody's feedback associated with early adopters, we were able to vastly improve those operations. As you can see, there's numeric limits, there's units of measure, and everything that makes GDP errors virtually troublesome to actually produce, and especially with our reviewers and then training checkpoints. How do you check training or cross-reference that across multiple logbooks across a GMP environment? With the tools that are provided with insights and so forth, we're able to cross-reference that information and ensure that everyone is properly trained to use logbooks.
That sounds great. And so it sounds like that was very useful on the operator side for people coming who have to actually interact with the paper logbooks, like their work is easier with the electronic ones. I remember we were talking the other day, and you mentioned also consolidating multiple types of logbooks into a smaller number of them that made it easier for the builders and administrators as well. Could you tell us more about that?
Correct. So for that example that Nicole was building today, our warehouse and cleaning checklist, We had several zones throughout the warehouse. So each one of those zones was dedicated a separate logbook for us to designate which location was being cleaned or inspected. With digital logbooks, I believe it was 7 logbooks for our entire warehouse. We were able to consolidate that under one logbook. Given the dynamic functions of the logbooks and multi-select, we were able to designate the locations that were properly cleaned. And then with that information, no longer were we cross-referencing those 7 logbooks to find out we have procedures in place that specific areas need to be cleaned at minimum once a week. So rather than searching every single logbook to make sure that everything's been cleaned in its entirety, we had the ability to use reports and exporting into either CSV or PDF to be able to see a week's time span to make sure that everything was properly done within that.
Sounds great. So if you don't mind, I think we have a few questions that have come in from the Q&A that might actually be pretty helpful. I would love to get your answer on them as well.
Absolutely.
So one of the first questions we had was, what does the implementation look like? Like what was the timeline or resources needed in your experience?
Compared to paper-based, it's a seamless implementation. Like they just showed you, we were able to create a logbook within the demo that was here. It's as simple as building the logbook using the tool that's provided, and then routing that for review and approval. I believe there was a question surrounding that, whether quality can be involved. So it's as
Correct.
simple as a toggle switch that you turn on, and you could designate who's going to approve it, whether it be a user or role, as well as how many approvals. If it needs to go through multiple stages of approval, you can add that in as well too. Once that happens, you issue the logbooks with its appropriate permissions. Who's the owner of the logbook? Who's the operators? And they could be user group based or individual named users, as well as who are your designees to review that logbook in its entirety and lock down those fields for future reference. We implemented a laboratory within the span of a week to do all of the logbooks from our in-process checks, our transition of samples from production to QA. So essentially we had a transition log that says when the laboratory receives certain results and assigned it a unique identifier, as well as equipment. Every piece of equipment needs its daily verification checks, as well as its usage logs. Another challenge that we did have with our balances was usage logs integrated into our daily verification checks. When we do have an investigation initiated, how do we understand the scope of the impact? Prior, we were looking through paper-based logs, several hundred pages essentially, because it depends on the frequency and the last impact that was done on it. With a digital logbook, we're able to export in CSV or use Insights as a tool to narrow down that information and only show the scope of it.
That sounds great. So related to what you just mentioned, and a new question just came in, which is there a steep learning curve for your operators? Like what is the additional training? How long did it take for people to become comfortable using recurrent logbooks?
So adoption, like I say, the most challenging part with this is remembering your password to log into MasterControl. As early adopters, we had our production supervisor, another SME that co-collaborated with us. And literally we developed an existing log. So we recreated what we had exactly digitally. We didn't want to show the operators any changes or any process improvements from a preliminary standpoint. So we literally worked on it within 20 feet of production. We published it in our development site just to make sure that it was working. And we handed somebody a tablet and says, fill this logbook out. They were able to fill it out with no training, no expectations, or anything like that. Since we had used MasterControl with docs, with training, with process, they were already familiar with the interface and how to interact with it. Granted, this is on the new Adept platform. It does allow for greater usability of it. So we literally handed the template, they logged in, they filled it out, and they had no questions. Obviously, with additional training and supplement that we did provide the laboratory, they were able to seamlessly use it as well too.
That is great to hear, and that's exactly what we were hoping for when we were developing this functionality, right? Like this is the tool that should require very little training to use beyond your own SOPs and your own training for the materials that you're using or for the equipment that you are working on. The tool itself should be as simple to use as possible. So I think we tangentially answered this one during the demos, but like in your experience, on average, how long does it take to create a logbook template? I know we saw one created in a couple minutes earlier today. Is that representative of your experience in production?
Correct, yeah. So like we say, the approval is going to take longer than creating the logbook if you have approvals going forward. So what we were doing is we took our existing logbooks where we had templates, we recreated them. Obviously, after several months of use, we realized that there was opportunities for improvements. With a paper-based system, you have to have those checks and balances, the date, who initiated it, who performed it. With a digital logbook, that information is captured behind the scenes. And as well, once you turn on those detailed views, all of the information is transparent to you. So to create the logbook, less than an hour, I'd say. To get it approved, that's based off of the individual's experience. If we prioritize it, say, hey, please review this with its associated references. And then obviously you want to test it as well. So you're testing this information in your test site to make sure everything works. And one thing that we did not mention was validation of this. We have the ability to test positive and negative validations on these instances, number of executed rows, and it gives us our documents ready for review and approval as well too, based off of the individual's experience of how they support the validation and whether it can be used in parallel or going forward. We have that information to support it. Not only is the platform validated, but your individual logbooks are validated as well too.
Right. Thank you for bringing that up. Yeah, that is something that we're very proud of, which is, and for those unfamiliar with logbooks or the ADAPT platform, this is something we call validation on demand, which essentially allows you to, whenever you create a template or revise it, allows you to launch a process that will impersonate any user that you choose it to, and then create a set of testing logbooks and run through the entire template with them using both positive and negative path testing, as Anthony mentioned. So this can, and at the end, it will give you a detailed report of every step that it took and whether passed and failed and the data used for it. And you can even go and review the created logbooks yourself. So reducing a lot of the manual work that you would need to do to validate them this way. So going back to the list of questions, one question said, what are the best practices for making sure the logbooks are available at point of use? Anthony, I'm going to let you answer that one in more detail, but technically they are available anywhere you have a device capable of logging into MasterControl, which could be anything from a computer, like a workstation, to a computer, to a tablet, to even a phone if your employees are using work phones this way.
Correct. Just like Eli was saying, it's based off of our hardware that we do have. So we did decide to implement in our quality control laboratory initially because the hardware was already available. Everyone has a mobile device or a laptop computing that they can take around as they're doing their daily verification checks, their performance verifications, or their sample tracking logs. So we decided there. Our production environment was a little more of a challenge since we did not have, since every room did not have mobile devices available to us. We decided early on to put this into our annual operating plan, that every production room would have a fixed mounted tablet on the inside of every room. So just like our 3 logbooks that we did have available to us for all of our daily verification checks, now we have that one point of contact on the inside of the room mounted to the wall where anyone can log directly into MasterControl, search for the logs that they have access to, and execute those logs within there. And not only are we limited to those hardware computers, now quality assurance that is typically seated outside of production can remote into all of that data and see all of the actions in real time that go through.
Right. So now anybody can walk into a room where a tablet is available, or if they have their own device, if that's the system being used, they can log in. If it's a shared tablet, they just need to provide their own credentials, take the action. Maybe a second user can verify or witness over their shoulder by providing their own credentials. Or as you said, somebody in a different room or even a different site entirely could log in and review it as well without needing to physically access the logbook.
Correct. Just like you were saying, that over the shoulder function, I think was hinted earlier. So as a user is logged in, they're performing that operation on the logbook. However, as we see, we have two options, a witness and a verifier. So as a witness and a verifier, you obviously can't verify your own work. So we're building the quality into this product. So the over-the-shoulder function is, as one person is performing that operation, another person is verifying that. So that user does not have to log out, and then the over-the-shoulder individual has to log in. They could log in, they can perform their verification within the same credentials. So those credentials that the user logged in at, that over the shoulder pops up a message. Please put in your unique user individuals and verify it without that individual having to log out. So it makes it even easier for that individual. Just like paper, where you just, one person performs their operation, another person verifies. Same thing with the computer. Someone's performing the operation, another person's performing that verification with their credentials.
Correct. And the list of users who are allowed to verify or witness somebody else is also controlled by the template admin.
Correct.
So
Yeah.
it's not like anybody can go in and do it. It's only the person who should have that ability. All right. Let's go through some of the questions. We're getting actually a lot of questions about integrations in general, whether it's integration with other products in MasterControl or with types of equipment or even other systems. If you don't mind, Anthony, I'm going to answer those for a minute.
Okay.
First of all, can logbooks be integrated to other tools and equipment? The answer is this is something we are currently working on and should be available within the first half of 2025, where you will be able to specify to attach a logbook to every single piece of equipment that you have. If you so choose, you could set up a template to say this is the cleaning template or the calibration template or validation template for all pipettes or for balances of this specific type, let's say. And then every logbook, for every balance that you have, you can create a specific logbook for it that will track all operations performed against it. We are also looking at equipment integration to be able to read data directly from that equipment to input the validation value, for example, to make sure that what does the number on the scale say, or what does the number on the balance say, and then pull that directly into the logbook without human intervention. Logbooks can currently be integrated with barcode readers as well as QR code readers to populate values directly into the fields as well. That currently exists. So that allows you to read part numbers, for example, when you are entering information. As a more general answer, MasterControl is looking at integration with other systems. We have an integrations team that is working to set up out-of-the-box API integrations to other processes and also give integration points or integration bus that can be used to set up your integrations. And our services team is pretty experienced with setting up those integrations as well. I apologize, I've been using the word integrations the last 2 minutes more than I ever have in my life. So this type of setup is something that our services team is very comfortable with and can help you develop as needed. We are also looking at integrating logbooks with other MasterControl products. Currently, it is integrated with documents, which is what powers the training checks that we discussed. The training checks currently look like an error message that a user would get if they try to access or work in a logbook that they have not completed the trainings for. This will just stop them and remind them to go and complete the specific training that they are missing. We are also looking at integrating logbooks with production records. There is currently an integration between the two, but that links a logbook to an entire production record. We are looking at expanding that over the next year into linking specific logbook rows to specific steps in a production record. So this will tell you exactly what logbook row supports or provides supporting evidence for the actions performed in the EBR record step. And speaking of supporting evidence, we got a question about attaching pictures to logbooks. The answer is yes. This is a newly released feature where you are able to attach files of a wide variety of types to any individual logbook step. This does not need additional configuration. It is natively supported. And so whenever an operator, for example, takes a picture or a screenshot of the action they just performed, they can attach that to the step. This can also be used to attach valid certificates of calibrations, for example, or really any other supporting evidence that you would like to attach to a given step. Anthony, I'm going to bring you back in real quickly just to answer. In your experience, how difficult is it for end users to navigate and find the logs that they need to add data to?
Not as difficult as one might assume. So a lot of the users that we do have, their interface is very limited, obviously to complete their training and find documentations in it. Now with the newly added icon, they're taken directly to it, and they have several options to find the logbook. Up top, they could use the search to find the individual logbook. We name them very similarly to our old nomenclature, typically by room or by functional area, as well as they have the side column that they have as well too to navigate, and they'll only see the logbooks that pertain to them. So with the permissions that we use for creating logbooks, the owners, operators, as well as the reviewers and viewers, that option limits the availability for the end user. So only showing them the logs that they pertain to. So from that aspect, I believe it's very user-friendly for them, because they only see what's relevant to their work experience and to their daily operations.
Right, so the permissions management already pre-filters what logbooks anybody has access to. So this would prevent them from seeing logbooks for other sites, for example, or for functional areas that they're not responsible for. Like you mentioned, there is a search functionality. We are also releasing soon additional filtering and search capabilities and sorting for logbooks, as well as logbook rows, which will make it much easier to zero in on the specific logbooks or rows that you want. Finally, one thing we are also looking at for next year is QR codes. So the ability to generate a QR code for a specific logbook that you could then print and stick on a piece of equipment, for example, so that you only have to scan it and be taken directly to the logbook, either for that room or for the piece of equipment that you have. Looking at some of the other questions that we have, are there any ways to generate collections of logbooks for buildings or departments other than just naming convention? At the moment, we don't have an explicit tagging or folder system for logbooks, so we do rely on naming a little bit. Anthony, is this something that you've encountered, or could you speak to how you've organized your logbooks, for example?
So we've organized them very similar to our implementation. So like we said, Jamieson is a 100-year-old company. However, I started off with NutriWise Health and Beauty, a 10-year-old company that adopted and always was on the forefront of technology. We were the ones that actually brought MasterControl onto Jamieson Wellness. So when doing our implementation earlier this year, we went live April 1st, believe it or not. We use the same naming convention. So each of our sites is designated an acronym. So NW for NutriWise, RH for roads, and then we have three other facilities. We utilize that same naming convention. And then obviously the owners of those naming conventions, we had the permissions. Who owned those books? Typically, Doc Control owned those books for each individual sites. As system administrators, we do have access to all of them. So I would want to say the burden's more on us rather than the end user or the individual site, but we did that through a proceduralized approach. Like Eli is saying, I'm sure they have something up their sleeve for the future for the site segregation, just like other AQEM or other Adept platform features, but currently we've been proceduralizing it, and there's been little hiccups or anything like that. Typically works just like everything else we have.
That's good to hear. So we got a question about generating custom numbering conventions. That is something we are looking at. This is not currently possible. Right now, naming conventions are all free text. We are, however, looking at some form of naming convention or logic configuration, either reusing equipment and template names, for example, or using auto number. I will mention that every logbook does have an auto-generated number for it. So your logbooks will go from log 1 to log n for however many you end up creating over time. When it comes to reviews and corrections, can a correction be made after the logbook entry has been reviewed? Actually, no. Corrections can no longer be made after a reviewed row. They are locked down at this point. We are looking at potentially extending this capability or allowing a higher level of correction to be performed after review. That's something we'll look at for the future. We're almost on time, so I'm just going to run through some of the last questions quickly, and then we'll conclude. Does the logbook function have an additional cost attached to it? Logbooks is licensed as its own product. It can actually be purchased standalone, independent of any other MasterControl products. And it has two types of licenses. There is the builder license, which is necessary to create the templates. So Anthony would be a builder, for example. And then there are operators licenses for every person on the floor who is performing the work. They are each priced differently, and I'm sure your account executives would be happy to walk you through the options available there. So we are pretty much on time. Anthony, thank you so much for coming in and being willing to share your experience and your knowledge. The rest of this team, there are some questions that we will try to answer later in a document we will send out after the webinar is done. Anthony, Nicole, any closing words?
No, I just appreciate everyone's time today.
Yeah, same. Thank you again for all your guys' support, because you guys are the ones that make our job a lot more easier and a lot more efficient.
And thank you very much for coming here, Anthony. We've been working with Jamieson since day one, since we released this product, and it's been great to continuously take your feedback and improve this product as a result of it. And of course, that's a relationship I would love to see build with everybody else who's joined us today. Have a good day, everyone, and thank you for attending.